Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Talkoffame podcast. I'm Kylie Montigney as your host, and today I'm welcoming to the podcast Chris Strub. Chris is an independent, award-winning mobile storyteller with experience working with nonprofit organizations in all 50 states. Through hands-on training sessions, live streaming, event hosting, and keynote speaking engagements, he inspires and educates nonprofits and their advocates on the best ways to leverage social media to drive successful outcomes. He has worked with Humania, Big Brothers Big Sisters of America, Live Me, and he serves as the National Red Kettle Ambassador for the Salvation Army USA and partnered with local and regional giving days around the country. He was actually the first person to live stream in all 50 states, which is actually crazy and amazing at the same time. And the author of two books focused on road trip marketing and recently came out with his third book. And Chris, I know that was a long intro, but thank you so much for coming on. How are you today?
I'm doing great. It's great to chat with you, and thanks for all the kind words.
Of course. So, how did you kind of come about to start your work? I know that's probably the question I probably start with all the time and stuff, but in case people don't know necessarily what your work is, how did you kind of come about to start it?
Yeah, I had a call the other day with a Binghamton University student. So I graduated from Binghamton University right up 81 in upstate New York. And she's really interested in getting into marketing and really into social media. And I thought back as I was having that conversation with her about how social media wasn't really a thing when I was getting out of college and getting into the quote unquote real world, right?
Mhm.
So anyone that you talk to that's around my age, and my birthday is next week, turning 38.
Ooh, happy birthday.
Thank you. Thank you. All of us have some kind of unique story into that roundabout way that we got into the social media industry. And my story roots back to starting in journalism, right? So I studied English and economics in college, got a job on the copy desk at the local newspaper in Binghamton, and really learned from some of the best in the industry there at the Press and Sun for years. But at the same time, I felt like a lot of my colleagues were learning from me, as Facebook became a thing and Twitter became a thing. And, instead of the traditional just kind of looking up to your elders and learning, how everything is done during that, late 2000s, early 2010s period, it felt like the entire industry and the entire way that we share stories with one another was changing. And so, being one of the younger folks in the newsroom, I felt like I had a somewhat of an advantage to be able to absorb some of these ideas and new concepts somewhat quickly. I'm guessing like MySpace might have been a little bit before your time, but we kind of grew up learning the social media stuff as we go. And I had the benefit of mixing that new knowledge with a lot of the old knowledge at this newspaper office. Long story short, turned that into a job at a local advertising agency in Binghamton for a couple of years, and was able to translate some of that social media skill set into the business world and help local businesses use social media to grow their bottom line. And then in 2014, quit that job, said I've had enough, and went on a 48 state road trip around the country. Ended up doing a very similar thing the following summer in 2015, which you referenced in the intro, where I visited in my 2007 Honda Accord, which I still have, all 50 states in 100 days. And from there, it's just been a whirling dervish of various things. I was emailing you, Kylie, about kind of what we wanted to talk about today. And I felt like there's so many different parts of my story, especially over this last decade, that have just been divergent and yet all back to the same recurring theme of confidently sharing your story on social media. And I think that's what brought us together here today, because I can tell you're a very talented storyteller with a passion of your own. You have built up this podcast with 200 plus episodes. That's amazing. And so I'm really glad to dive a little bit more into our stories here today.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. And especially like what you said earlier with social media. Like guys like you and like my parents and everything didn't grow up with social media. Like you couldn't share like your life on social media. And I feel like with growing up without social media, I feel like with growing up without social media, it's much more better for the mental health rather than people my age or my generation, Gen Z, to kind of grow with social media and deal with mental health problems for what they're posting and they're living a better life. But then at the same time, for people that are like influencers, do work in media and stuff like that, it's like it's something they kind of need to kind of promote their work, but at the same time, it's like bad to kind of with what people are doing. It like self doubts a lot of people. And with like, especially with being working with nonprofits and stuff and social media and everything. And like, how do you kind of work with nonprofits all around the world from like Pennsylvania, Texas, and you worked with people all over the country? Like, how do you work with like a bunch of nonprofits to kind of leverage their social media?
Sure. So our paths somewhat crossed. This past June, I worked with the Scranton Area Foundation
Mm,
on their annual NEPA Gives campaign, which
mm,
covers a multi-county area in that Scranton-Wilkes-Barre area.
mm,
And hundreds of nonprofits, for your listeners who might not know, hundreds of nonprofits from all around that region are fundraising simultaneously for a 24-hour period
mm,
in a collective effort to uplift one another, to uplift the community, and to really help support the services that those nonprofits offer year round. So that concept is not unique to NEPA, but it is the NEPA folks do a wonderful job.
mm,
My job as the Giving Day guy is I get to work with Giving Day events like that around the country. So you mentioned San Antonio. In a couple of weeks, I'll be back in Louisville, Kentucky, where I've worked with them since 2017. And there are giving days like this all around the United States. They're quickly growing in popularity. It's a hundreds of $1 million plus per year industry for sure. And that's not even counting the billions of dollars that are traditionally raised during the most popular giving day of the year, which would be Giving Tuesday, which many people know is the first Tuesday after Thanksgiving. So
mm.
really, how do I engage with these nonprofits? Again, these events really present an opportunity for local communities like that Scranton Wilkes-Barre area to really turn an ear to the stories of these nonprofits. You'll see on the local news leading up to those events, and then especially on the big day itself, everyone with an opportunity to share a story about a nonprofit can do so on that day. And traditionally, that might have been the newspapers, the TV stations, the radio stations. And now, 2023, it's folks like you with a podcast of over 200 episodes. And it's people like me as the Giving Day guy with cameras and microphones. And the big lesson that I try to share with the nonprofits is that they too are their own storytellers and
Mhm.
can really help get their own stories out there using these same tools that you and I do.
Yeah, exactly. And like that's how like I kind of like got across you is like with you being in the Scranton Wilkes-Barre area with like NEPA gives down back in June. And like you I think you're down in Wilkes-Barre, right? Like for the NEPA gifts.
Yep. So we started evening one in Wilkes-Barre and then moved back up into Scranton for day two. And before that, earlier in the week, I had actually done like a bit of a whirlwind tour and gone to visit a lot of the different nonprofits around the region in person as well. So they put me to work up there for sure.
Oh yeah, they're like if you're from Northeast PA or visiting, the one thing you have to notice is that everyone puts you to work no matter what. And like it's also like a working area for some reason. Everyone does.
It's a hardworking town, and that's I think really the ethos of NEPA Gives is that pride that everyone that lives in that region really takes in being from NEPA or living in NEPA.
Yeah, exactly. Like when you like I know like what you said like a lot of nonprofits were in specifically Northeast PA like were like raising money for Giving Day. Like you were down in Wilkes-Barre next day's grant and I was on a pitched it for Northeast PA inclusive the first day. And then like for 2 days we like overall raised like $1 million or something overall. And it's like amazing to see how much people kind of care about raising money for different nonprofits in the area.
Yeah, it's amazing how these giving days around the country are able to create giving moments, right? Like every single one of those nonprofits, you could theoretically go on to their website right now, or call them up and make a donation 365 days a year. Don't get me wrong; they would all love it and appreciate it.
Mhm.
But what a giving day like NEPA Gives Day does is it creates a reason for people to want to give together, and
Mhm.
creating that community atmosphere and really fostering that community is what makes a giving day like NEPA Gives so special. Is it lets the community really demonstrate its enthusiasm and its love for this super critical nonprofit sector that really helps so many people across the region in so many different ways.
For sure. And like with especially with you working on social media and helping nonprofits, like in your opinion, like what are some ways to kind of expand our social media, whether it's like working on nonprofits or kind of promoting them? Like what are some ways you can kind of grow that social media, whether it's Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, well, X they call it now, but how is it kind of like what are some things we can do to grow our social media?
Yeah, I mean, I think as we're seeing here today with this podcast, video is incredibly important to being able to capture people's attention on social media, right? So I remember when I started as a consultant, um, I, I'm not even kidding when I say this, Kylie. Part of my job was to encourage brands to like create a Facebook page, right? Like you have to have a presence here, or you're going to get lost. You're going to be missing. And now that paradigm has really shifted to you need to be using video to share your story.
Mhm.
And a big thing that I talk about in my trainings and a lot of the stuff I offer online is how to use video, even with limited resources and a limited team, to share your story. Because again, there's so much more to being able to connect with a person, and by extension, a brand, when you can see and hear and really feel what they're saying, as opposed to just reading text or even looking at a photograph, right? So
Mhm.
my biggest big picture tip would be to use video.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of different ways you can do that. Not every video needs to be formally produced. Most of the video that I actually create with Giving Days is done just with iPhones.
Mhm.
And my third book, which came out a couple of years ago now, kind of my COVID baby, was 15 Seconds of Fame. But I talk a lot about using Instagram stories to kind of share your story in a quick, simple, ephemeral way, right? That anyone can just hold down that button on Instagram, talking to the camera for 30 seconds and really share what you're up to. And that can make all the difference.
Oh yeah, 100%. There's like one like especially like Instagram, TikTok, or um Facebook or whatever like big platforms they are. Like whenever you're like making videos on your Instagram story or making reels or something, like honestly, Twitter and TikTok are like the biggest ways to actually promote things, like Giving Day, for example, or a podcast or a movie or something. Like social media is like a huge way to actually kind of promote your work in this or like you're volunteering or something, because like when you promote that stuff on social media to your followers, whether you have like 100 followers, a couple thousand, a million, whatever, like how many followers you have, it really kind of demonstrates how much like it reaches other people. Like I saw like when I like came across your page, someone shared your things on your story. I don't know if it was Giving Day or something that got you from, but it's like it's just like with social media, it's just it's such a powerful tool to reach new people.
It's a great way to stay plugged into what's happening in your community, and I'm sure that you follow a lot of NEPA based channels. I'm based here in Greenville, South Carolina. And it's a wonderful way to really keep your finger on the pulse to know what's happening around the community. The other big thing that I would say on this particular point here, Kylie, is I think that there is a little bit of a stigma even today about people sharing their um, uh, efforts or contributions or volunteerism with nonprofits, that some people tend to think that your volunteerism only really counts if you're doing it silently, right? And I strongly disagree with that point. I feel like these nonprofits certainly also really appreciate when they're able to recruit and foster volunteers and vocal brand advocates for their cause, right? Because that is how word spreads these days, is through social media. And too often now, we go on social media and see a lot of negativity.
Oh, for sure.
And my role, and maybe one day this will be on my gravestone, but I really hope to, even in just my little tiny corner of the world, help make people's time on social media feel like a more uplifting and positive experience. Because again, I've had such great experiences with wonderful people in all these different communities that you spoke about, both through the giving days and through some of the road trip marketing stuff and some other things that I've done. Like, America is really filled with wonderful, kind, generous, just truly special people. And I don't think we can ever do too much to help uplift the stories of those individuals.
Exactly. That's so well said. Because like when we have social media, like with social media's popularity in recent years, where it's like TikTok. I know TikTok grew like when the lockdown came up in 2020, and that's when social media came to use. And like you said earlier, like with social media, there's so much negative and so much things happen in the world today that really just damages people's mental health and what's going on in the world right now, where it's like our country, different countries around the world, seeing a million things and stuff like that. It's like it can really just damage your perspective on things that are going on right now. But when you have that platform to, whether you're like have doing some entertainment, giving back or something, or just have a regular Instagram page, and like to really spread that positivity or kind of share your work and have an impact on others instead of posting so much negative on social media, it can just bring so much positivity into people's lives to the point where they can make positivity as well from just seeing your one post that you posted.
And it's so simple to do too, I love using my channels, like you mentioned, to uplift the efforts of others, right?
Mm-hmm.
And my hope is that when people come across my work on social media, no matter what I'm doing, they get that impression, like you just mentioned, of positivity and enthusiasm and good energy and good vibes and all that stuff. And that can be challenging sometimes to keep doing that. But I've been very, very fortunate with my clients with these giving days. I was a National Red Kettle Ambassador with the Salvation Army back in 2017. So that was just a wonderful experience to get a chance to work with them. And now these days I'm doing a lot more. You've probably seen a lot of this on my channels too, but I like to run. So a lot of my content these days is related to my efforts in running. And again, it's not really about me. I've really had a chance, at the gym here, and I'm in a local running club, stuff like that, to really help try and inspire others to discover the best version of themselves, by leading by example, So if I can run all these races, I know that anyone out there can go run their first, that they've been waiting years to try and give it a shot. And I'm very blessed that some of my friends are taking that plunge. I'm going to be rooting everybody on here in October in Greenville, because a bunch of us are going to be running a race here Halloween weekend. So life is good, and it's just, there's so many good things out there. And when you plug into good people doing good things on social media, that time that you spend, and we all do it, right? You lay back on the couch or in bed or whatever, and you're just scrolling TikTok or Instagram or whatever. When I do that, and I do feel uplifted and inspired because I have been able to connect with so many great people in person over the last decade plus.
That's like the best thing, honestly, about social media is that like you will find so many uplifting people that will kind of inspire you to pursue your work or even work harder in your work or make a difference in people's lives. Like when you So for TikTok or Instagram or something, like at least for 5 minutes, I know basically everyone that has social media at least scrolls at least once or twice a day through social media. Whether it's like TikTok, Instagram, or something, it's like everyone scrolls through something for at least a couple minutes. And so like when you go through the people you follow or the people that you don't know and they see like, oh, this person's doing this for their community or they're getting so much followers or something, it just kind of inspires you to kind of work harder more than you already are, whether it's like running, posting on social media, influencing, or like just doing something for the community. It will kind of uplift you to kind of do more things. I know that I see people, whether it's like my fans family, from people that I don't know, when I see them doing amazing things, I'm like, I do want to work harder to kind of do more things. Well, maybe not more things. I can't overwork myself, honestly, but it's like to kind of do things, work hard to the things I'm actually doing right now rather than adding more things and overwork myself.
Yeah, and I think that the important thing to remember as a listener to something like this is to not judge people based on the size of their following, right?
Mm.
One of my favorite quotes that I reference every interview I do, every presentation I do, is that we are all famous to a few people. And
Mm.
credit that to my good buddy, Joe Wilson, who's up in Albany, just an awesome human being. And what you'll find as you spend more and more time on social media is that, yeah, there are a lot of really great people with huge followings. And then there's also really a lot of great people with not so huge followings,
Mm.
and so, fame to me is relative, and fame is definitely subjective.
Mm.
I've had experiences where, people will see me from down a long hallway and come sprinting down like I had someone jump in my arms the first time we met a few years ago at a conference out in San Diego, just because she knew me and my work through social media, right? And then you go walk down the street in Greenville and I'm just, another guy, right?
Mm.
So it's, I think again, when you really embrace that phrase, we are all famous to a few people,
Yeah.
really helps you develop a deeper understanding of why something like a podcast like yours is so special.
Mm.
Because everyone's story has such really deep and rich and complex meaning to somebody,
Mm.
or as Joe says, to a few people. And I've been fortunate enough that my quote unquote few people has grown, somewhat gradually over the years, but enough to be able to make a living off of it. And I think as long as you stay grounded and stay humble, and understand that we're all just human. I love that song, "Only Human." It's like my new favorite song these days.
Oh, is
Uh,
it the Jonas Brothers song?
no, I think it's Rag and Bone Man.
Oh, I mean, I know Jonas Brothers have about only human songs. So I was like, is that the Jonas Brothers song you're talking about?
I got to listen to that one too. I'll let you know if that one's better than the one I was listening to.
Yeah,
But
if anyone listening is a Jonas Brothers fan, never heard Only Human, definitely stream it for sure. Let me know what you think. This is seriously amazing, especially with them going on tour and their new album. Just listen to it. I could recommend.
I got to step up my Jonas Brothers game for sure. Um, yeah, I'm more of an Ed Sheeran guy,
Oh,
but
Ed Sheeran's really good. Ed Sheeran's amazing.
yeah, I mean, I think what you're starting to see, even in the pop culture world these days, is a movement towards authenticity, right? And
Mm.
these bigger, even these super famous artists are judged more and more based on these little human interactions they might have with people
Mm.
that are encountering them, right? Like,
Yeah.
you know, you could have your favorite athletes or artists or celebrities or whoever it is, but if you walk into the LA airport one day and you see that person and they're just a total jerk to you, that's going to completely change your perception of who that person is, even though maybe you've watched 20 of their movies or downloaded all their albums or whatever. But those little interactions and the way that you treat people matter, right?
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
That to me is what social media is really about, is just being good to people. You know,
Mm.
as my friend Ted Rubin says, right? Just be good to people. And,
Mhm.
if somebody asks you a question, answer, or if there's something that you see that you can do for someone, do it, right? Because again, at the end of the day, we're all just humans trying to do the best that we can. And I think really trying to remember that and moving away from a perception of, these immaculate macro influencers has made a big difference in the way I perceive the social media industry.
Because like with social media, like with like when people post about meeting their favorite celebrity artist or somebody, like they will like all of the times come across videos of like they're like a little like story time of meeting a celebrity, an actor or somebody, and they're like, oh, this person treated me good, but this person treated me like crap. Like it really depends because when they like the business person might be one of the kind of celebrities in the industry, but then they kind of treat the person really bad, work over like a fan or somebody. But then like I just came across a story on TikTok a few weeks ago of Matthew McConaughey. I do love Matthew McConaughey. On like if people don't know who he is, he's an actor. He's the owner of a soccer team. And then I heard the story of him like leaving a match of his soccer team or whatever, and a fan went up to him and said something, then he was just really rude to them or something. I forget the full story. I have to recheck the video, but they claim he was like really rude to them, said rude stuff, but then he basically left. But then like even if maybe he was just having a rough day, like maybe he
Yeah,
doesn't want to talk to fans right at that moment, or he doesn't want to be bothered. And like when fans deal with that like things, like you have to think like, okay, this person is actually human. Like they can be angry, they can be have a bad day, they can don't want to talk to fans at the moment. Like they're just regular people. Like people, even though they might have a ton of fans and my people know who they are, but that doesn't make them less human. Of course, they have a lot of things they do and everything. Like that doesn't it just doesn't make them less human. The only thing that is different between you and them is that they have more people that know who they are.
right, right. Yeah, again, I totally agree with you. I don't know, maybe I overstated a little bit how you don't necessarily want to judge someone based on just one interaction,
Yeah.
but over time your reputation can evolve if that becomes a thing that you're doing every single time you see someone or whatever. But I think the other thing to remember with the way that to bring it back to kind of the nonprofit side of things, nonprofits are made up of human beings, and those
Mm-hmm.
beings, no human being has great days every single day, right?
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
I really respect and commend, and I wanted to come on your podcast because I have great appreciation for your appreciation of the importance of mental health, and to kind of re-emphasize to anyone that's listening, trying to take away tips, is like it's okay to not be okay.
Mm-hmm.
It's really okay to not feel like you always have to voice perfection and positivity on social media, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
as wonderful a community as I've built over the years, I love and respect everyone that I'm connected with on social media, because I know if I message them saying that something's wrong, or I need something or something like that, there's a lot of people that would be more than happy to support me, and vice versa, because
Mm-hmm.
we understand that we are humans first and
Oh,
social
yeah.
media users second.
Mm-hmm.
So there really, to me, is there's no benefit to trying to paint a perfect picture of your life or of your business on social media. To me, it's about authenticity and being real with your message and with your objectives and your goals, and then finding a community that wants to support you, and vice versa.
For sure. Because like, even if like you do so many things, and like with social media, it can amplify. Oh, this person's so happy. He has everything. Like he has so much money. He has he knows a ton of famous people, like he does so much work and he's so happy. But then like through social media, you only see the happy side of things. Like you don't know what they might be feeling outside of like that post or that picture. And like with me, even though I do podcasting and stuff, I might seem like the happiest person in the world. Like I might seem the happiest person, but then on the other side of the camera, like I'd be miserable. Like with me, like sometimes I'd be having anxiety attacks every single day, or panic attacks, or crying. And so like, you just like sometimes don't know until like, you at least talk to your family members or your close friends or the people that you know in this industry, like, I'm okay. Can I talk to you? Because when you have that close connection to some people, like, they might understand what you're going through to get their tips on it.
Yeah. I really, really appreciate your viewpoint, and your candor on that, because I agree 1,000%. Like there's, humans on the other side of each one of these accounts. And that to me has been the most important thing to remember, in trying to, again, succeed on social media or to grow an audience. It's one human being and one relationship at a time.
And like, you are like the first person to live stream in all 50 states. Like, how did you kind of travel and record in all 50 states in 100 days?
It was pretty wild. I'd like to say the planning was probably even harder than the trip itself. So I'm very much a type A guy. I like to know where I'm going to be, when I'm going to be there, and have everything kind of locked up in advance. So it wasn't just jump in the car and go. It was, spend close to a year building a spreadsheet of contacts and times and resources and, lots of map questing and stuff like that. But to me, it was, again, it all tied back to the why, which was wanting to use this skill set that I had developed at the newspaper and then at the advertising agency, to make a difference in the world. And to me, that took the shape of taking a road trip and visiting, and sharing the stories of all these different nonprofits. Live streaming just happened to come along, back in that 2014-ish, 2015 timeframe was really the renaissance of mobile live streaming. And so I could see how big a change that was in the industry, and decided that I wanted to get out ahead of it. And now I've been able, really by trying to continue to learn and improve and grow step by step, and improving my equipment and improving my style and my voice and all that stuff, to build a career off of it, and ideally build a career that hopefully has had a positive impact on, some of the nonprofits and some of the people that I've crossed paths with over the years. Easy for me to say.
No, yeah. And like before we head up, I wanted to ask you, like you were the author of 3 books called 50 States, 100 Days, the book, Fight for Good Toward the book, and a brand new 15 Seconds of Fame. Like how do you these books bring to people in road trip marketing and social media?
Yeah, road trip marketing is a phrase that, especially now that we are pretty much beyond COVID, my whole big road trip marketing plan really took a dive there in 2020, as we all locked ourselves away. But road trip marketing is, to me, is the concept of really going from place to place, ideally on a road trip, and sharing the stories of the people and the places and the things that you encounter. So it doesn't have to be 50 states, 100 days, and it doesn't have to be the Salvation Army Fight for Good tour. It could be any company or any entity or any individual, just identifying a series of stories on the road and really using that changing context and using that changing background, and the changing culture around you as sort of the tapestry to building, an ongoing story,
Yeah.
So, my hope is to inspire others to do more road trip marketing, to take the concept and run with it. I'd love to see it done more with nonprofits, but I mean, you could go to a different Burger King in every state, or you could go to a different, Taco Bell in every county in Pennsylvania. And there'd be wonderful stories to be told along the way, and then at each location, as part of this road trip marketing concept. So, I love getting out on the road and talking to people. I call my company I Am Here LLC because I love doing things in person, and getting out and actually meeting people in person. It's so, so different than really just making connections on social media. And maybe our paths will get a chance to cross next year. If I get a chance to come back to NEPA, maybe I'll get to meet you in person. But yeah, getting out there, put your pedal to the metal, put your feet on the ground and go talk to people and get out there and identify those stories. And you'll be able to find so much depth and complex beauty in what's out there around your city or your state or your country or even around the world. It's road trip marketing at its finest.
Yeah, that's so well said. It's like when you go out and like talk to people, whether it's like your local organization or local farms or local stores or something, that is just like when you go out there and talk with these people, you're not only meeting new people, but you're also meeting, making connections for future use and learning more specifically about what they do and how to get involved. Because when I go out, whether it's like going to hang out with friends or going to volunteer for a festival near me or a organization or whatever it is. Whenever I'm like volunteering, I volunteer so much. It's actually pretty crazy how much I volunteer. But it's like when I go out and stuff, like to learn more about different causes and having to get involved and how much it impacts, it really just changes your perspective on things that are happening in the world, not only in your area, but across all 50 states in general, like how much it changes, how much this organization or nonprofit really makes a change for people around you.
And, I'll leave you with that, Kylie, is just, I hope that people that are listening that want to, grow their social media presence, both get out there, get out in your community and do fun stuff and follow Kylie's lead and go volunteer all over the place. There's so many different opportunities, and use your voice on social media for good. There's too much negativity out there and people are looking for uplifting, positive, just consistent and quality people out there. And I want to thank you, Kylie, for giving me a chance to help, share some of my story today on your podcast. Congratulations on 200 episodes. That's awesome. And cheers to 2,000 more.
Oh, thank you so much. Here's to 2,000 more episodes and probably years more to come. Hopefully, fingers crossed, more to come. But thank you so much, Chris, for coming on and taking the time to come on. You are seriously amazing and so grateful for everything you're doing. And hopefully next year, like for NEPA, we can actually meet in person. Just let me know where you're going to be, and I'll try to make it and see you, like meet you actually in person, face to face. And thank you so much for everything you're doing. It's seriously making an impact. And so grateful to chat with you today.
Thank you, Kylie. I appreciate it.
Of course. Have a great rest of your day, Chris.
Talk soon.